to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. You know that I always am excited that you're joining us this week. So here's the deal, guys, right? We hear that word change and what happens? Not in our stomach. We go humada, humada, humada. So to help you navigate whatever change is happening in your life, whether you've chosen it or it's thrust upon you, in the show notes, you'll see a link for my communication style assessment. You will get 2 reports after taking the quick quiz. The first report really just spotlights your natural communication superpowers. It's how your message just naturally lands for you. Flip side, your lowest score, you'll get that secondary report. To me, that's the more important report because sometimes it's just a blind spot that you don't even know is there. So when you're speaking with people who are 180 degrees different than you, how is your message landing there? So again, that link is in the show notes, my gift to you. And I hope it makes navigating whatever change you're dealing with a little bit easier. Now, today, my guest and I, to get the conversation, I have a quote for you to set the stage. And the quote is by Jana Kingsford. And Jana says, "Balance is not something you find, it's something you create." Now, I'm often asked, how have I created balance while running and growing my business, especially when my kids were babies. They were little guys. The simple answer, it wasn't easy. And the better answer really is that even though it wasn't easy, it depended on how my husband and I managed that work and home life and approached it from a partnership. And the other thing I always answer is it was really a team effort for us. So I would go into heavy work mode and I would never come up for air. And he'd come into my office and literally push my computer down and say, "You need to come upstairs now," and hang out with him, the kids, whatever was going on. Well, after 5 minutes, I would be annoyed. But then after 5 minutes, I would look at him and say, "Thanks," because he knew I needed to get pulled out of my insanity, right, of work mode. So I believe that creating that type of balance takes deliberate strategies. And again, that whole team approach. So who is my guest today that we're going to talk about this cool topic of balance and life and all work and all the cool things that we women do? Well, my guest is Jackie Joy. Jackie is a dynamic leadership coach and sales trainer at Selling from the Heart. She has over 25 years of experience in various sales leadership roles. She's passionate about training the sales culture into the community of trust, authenticity, and credibility. Jackie's unique approach combines her rich sales experience with her love for psychology and learning, making her an inspiring coach. Now, her vision is to elevate the sales profession and positively impact society. And additionally, she's my good friend. So Jackie, thanks for being on, kiddo. I'm always excited.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I have 33 years experience as a mom.
Yeah. Amen, sister, right? So I have 28. So you're ahead of me with that one. But yes, so needless to say, we're seasoned. So that whenever someone introduces me when I speak, Jackson, they say, "Oh, she's seasoned." I go, "That's right, I'm hot and spicy," because right. Seasons equates to old these days, and I'm not old, okay? I love it. All right. No. So first thing, Jackie and I recorded a show a couple of months ago on my other podcast, Changing the Sales Game. I'm going to put that in the show notes. It was a little bit different topic than what we're talking about today. So again, check that one out as well. We had a really great conversation, and I think you'll walk away with even more tips from Jackie. So I just wanted to give that little plug for you, kiddo. All right, first question. How did C.A.R.E, C-A-R-E, come to be? And can you explain what it is and how it was kind of generated?
So I am very heart-centric and human-centric. So, and I, like you said a little while ago, I love psychology and I love sales. Now, most people, the minute they hear sales, they're going, "Yeah, not for me." But what people don't realize, no matter if you're talking about your personal life, someone's selling and someone's being sold to. Whether you're talking business, someone's selling, someone's being sold to, whether it's an idea, whether it's a product, a service, whatever. So, and being so heart-centric and human-centric, I always thought about caring for another individual. How do you bring that care, that love, that support without naming it like that, because we don't, want people to freak out. But so I'm like, CARE. So CARE is an acronym that I've developed to collaborate, because you're collaborating with one another, accelerate, lifting people up, whether it's a personal family member or whether it's a business member. Resonating. How are you going to resonate? How are you going to come together? Like you were talking about, you and your husband did. He knows what you need. You know what he needs, even though we want to do it kicking and screaming sometimes when he shuts your computer going, all right, people do end their workday. My husband does the same thing to me, so I can so resonate with that. But they resonate with one another. And then elevate. How do you elevate each other? And not only can we do that in our personal life, but if you bring that into your business life as well, it's a game changer. So
it's interesting. And I love that care, accelerate, resonate, and then elevate, because if as leaders, that's what we need to do. And it's interesting because the whole leadership game, right? You said we're always selling. So people who are in operations, right, or CFOs, they're like, yeah, I'm not selling, but you are, because you're going to the CEO or you're going to the division head and you're selling your idea of why you think you should buy this software or why you think we should introduce this additional product, right? If you're in product development, we're always selling our ideas. So that's why my communication model is critical, because how are we communicating, right? If my message isn't landing, we're not communicating. So no matter how great my idea is, it's landing flat. Nothing's going to change. So I love that. Care, accelerate, resonate, and elevate.
Collaborate, accelerate, resonate to elevate.
I said care
because I'm
looking at the word care on my screen here, right?
Okay.
And collaboration, that's the other thing. We can't do it alone, right? It really does take a village, I think, to run a department, to run a household. We have to look at that collaboration as an important piece of the puzzle. Now, do me a favor. So let's talk about collaborate, accelerate, resonate, elevate. What does each of those components? Let's dig a little bit deeper, right? Get in the weeds a bit. What does each mean so that everybody could truly understand?
So the C for collaborate, that is you're working jointly with someone. There's too many people, whether you're talking sales, whether you're talking your personal life, that we get so self-focused that that's all we care about. Like, I need that sale. I need them to do the dishes. I need, and it's too eccentric. But when you collaborate with someone, it's working jointly together. It's banding together. It is understanding each other's personal needs. One of the things, I'm an executive coach, so one of the things I talk a lot to leaders is saying everybody needs to be seen, heard, and understood. Everybody. And if you keep that in mind when you are speaking with someone, instead of I, me, my, it's how can I help you? What is it that you need? What are your goals? What are your initiatives? What are your challenges? All that. Can you tell I talk with my hands a lot? So sorry. So that's what collaborate is all about, is really getting out of your own way and finding out more about the other person. Why are they in the business that they are? Why are they needing this? What's going on with that? People are, it's kind of uncanny to me, but they're almost afraid to ask deeper questions.
Yeah.
And then once you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Once you understand that, it's accelerating. So you've found out about their interest, what captures their attention, what's going on with them. So how can you bring value and light them on fire? Not physically, but mentally, spiritually, however. But how are you working together with that collaboration and helping raise them, helping bring them to a whole other level? How are you going to provide those values, the insights, being that detective, getting deeper into that other person? Because that's where the magic is.
And so a couple of things before we go to the next two, right? The collaborate, accelerate, they work so beautifully together. But the collaboration, the old saying, two heads are better than one, three heads are better than two. It really is true, because we only have our filters and our perspective. So as soon as you flip it and listen to what someone else is saying, it's like, oh, I never even saw that perspective. And I give you a silly story. My niece were down the shore and she joined my husband and I, and we're hanging out yesterday and we're just chatting, and she made such a profound, like my husband and I, how we parent and my kids, how they responded and how her mom and dad parent. We were talking about parenting and, she's getting married in 2 years and all these things. So family, and it was just a really good conversation. And when she said that about how we're so different individually, my husband and I, but together we parent the same, I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And it was just, I said, I've never thought about that. So again, that dynamic perspective from another individual, now I can never unsee that. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that collaboration becomes so critical, I think, also in business, because I know what I think. And I'll give you another example. I belong to a community. Shannon Procyse runs it. It's a band community, business accelerate network. And I'm not going to find my clients there. However, every time I go to her community and I'm part of that networking, I always try to serve and share my expertise. But I always learn something about AI or about a software that someone's using or a strategy. And I think, oh my God, I could use that in my business. We cannot be so egotistical that we think we know everything. There's no way possible you can. So that collaboration, I believe, accelerates us naturally, because now you have two beautiful brains, or three or four or five, coming together and innovating, creating, and then accelerating us together to a whole new level of success. So I just love those first two. I wanted to comment on that.
And what you brought up is a good point, because most people don't realize, because everybody, it's almost a buzzword now, be a part of this mastermind, that mastermind, this mastermind. What a mastermind truly is about is, if you read any of Napoleon Hill stuff or all the other stuff before him, Maxwell Maltz, probably one of my favorite, is if you read any of his stuff, a true mastermind is if you get, say, 5 people together and everyone has to be in harmony, which is a key, in harmony, they create a mastermind.
That's right.
So it's not everybody's individual, it's the coming together. That's why Henry Ford was so successful. He only had a 4th grade education, but it's the mastermind group that he was a part of where they're collaborating, they're accelerating. So it helped everybody grow, even though education wise, they weren't there.
Absolutely.
But because of that mastermind, they had all the intellect that the world could offer.
Yeah, I love it. And again, you can't do it alone, but it's just mind yourself, because when I know it all and I'm better, and I've been in business 25 years, what are you going to help me with, Jackie? Right? That's a very limiting perspective, and it's very dangerous, because trust me, in sales, you're leaving money on the table. You're not connecting deeply because you're too egocentric, right? So that authenticity, all these words are being used. I don't always know that people truly understand the vibration of the dynamic of those words and how we execute in real life or business, whatever it might be. So I'm loving this, loving this, kiddo. All right, next one. Now resonate. Why is the resonate so important with the collaborate and accelerate?
So resonate is when you're striking a chord with someone. It's that deeper personal, emotional connection. And most people don't realize, and I'm going to drop a name, Don Barden, Perfect Plan. If you've ever read his book, it's what the elite 1% do, but 85% of our decisions are made emotionally.
Yeah.
But we back it up, only 15% of facts. So when you are resonating with someone on a personal level, that's when trust is built. That's when they're going to remember. And you build that up with stories. People will remember like 67% more of what you shared when you share a story. So that's why you, as a podcaster, you have a lot of beautiful stories, and people remember that. They resonate with it. So, and it's like, those, whether you're watching the news or a podcast or a keynote speech, when they share a story, you can put yourself in their shoes and going, I can do that. Oh my gosh, that person can do that. And I've got a lot of value, but to me, and what you said earlier, because you were talking about the ego, it's got to be about the message, not about the person.
Yeah.
It's about what you're saying. So that's why you want to resonate with people, how you can bring those stories to life, how you can get them to going, I so understand what Connie went through. I so get what Jackie's saying, because I'm there. I feel it. It's part of my soul.
Yeah.
But people sometimes are so afraid to bring that inner person out that it gets stuck. They get stagnant. And that's why resonating with someone is so important.
And I want to comment on that because something you just said, a word popped into my head, and that's vulnerability.
Mm.
For us to resonate, you have to be vulnerable. I'm not saying spew your deepest, darkest secret. That's
Yeah,
not
don't.
vulnerability. That's just statistic, right? Like, oh, listen to me. But to really resonate, I do believe that there has to be that really deep connection, that we feel each other. And I want to give you a quick example. I remember years ago, one of my clients, I worked with them for like 15 years. It was a really big company. And one of the employees, I hadn't seen her like in 5 or 6 years. I don't know. She had come through my training. That particular organization, the communication model they used was DISC, and I'm certified in DISC. I could teach predictive index, and then I have my own communication model. So I'm pretty well versed in communication skills. Anyway, I run into her in the lunchroom. Oh my God, I haven't seen you, right? Reconnect, hugs, kisses, all of that. And she says, oh my God, do you know I use DISC all the time? I'm taken back now. Haven't seen her in 5 or 6 years. I go, you do? She goes, and I remember your story about you and your husband and a one-legged bird. And I said, you do? And she goes, and I think of it all the time when I'm talking with my kids. What would Connie do? Apply the disc. Or when I'm with a friend or a sister and they're emotionally charging me, she goes, what's their disc style? I sat there. She 6 years later still understood disc, remembered my story and what the application was. That's when magic happens. I resonated. That story was silly and stupid, right? But it showed the point I was trying to make at how we have to communicate, and when we're not, how things could go wrong. So again, the resonance, I totally agree with. And the story piece of it, people can buy into it because they remember the story and then they remember the context of whatever they learned. In this case, it was disc. So I just love sharing
Love
that
that.
story because we're in the lunchroom. I'm like, you remember that? She goes, oh my God. And I think, what would Connie do with disc right now? 6 years later, I did my job. And that, well, but for me, that filled my heart so much. I can't even tell you, because she got value out of it, not just professionally, but personally. That's what we're talking about here. That's the depth of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point is when you do all these things, and it's not unless you're a stonewall person that has a hard time letting anybody in, a lot of this can just come naturally if you just let
Oh,
yourself go. You know,
oh, yeah.
so and you bringing value, it's a two-sided coin. When you bring someone to value, like you might not get it right away, but look at the gift that she just gave you from that story.
Yeah.
And that was like when I know for me, when that things like that happen, it's like, oh my gosh, you just touched my heart. You know, thank you for because you never know how you impact someone's life. You just never know. And most of the time people never know, unless they have this amazing eulogy and they can sit up for it, but usually they're dead, so they don't know all the things that they've touched people's lives. Kind of quirky, I know, but it's like, oh, it's just so bad that, all of these amazing stories come to life of how that person impacted all these lives, and they don't know.
Yeah.
And they
We
don't
all have a ripple effect, Jax, right? We all have a
know.
ripple effect. All right. Last one, elevate. So when setting
Elevate.
goals in business,
That's
personal
all
life.
about lifting higher. You know, if you want to be successful, help someone get there first. So elevate people, make them work with them. That's why it all works in together. So when you're collaborating and you're helping accelerate their business, which helps you accelerate your business or your personal life, you're resonating with each other. You're trying to understand things from other people's point of view, not just your own. And then you're elevating each other. You're lifting each other up. You're making, gosh, everything come whole. It becomes a circle. It's like we've got each other, you know? So that's where all that came from. It is, just helping each other. And it's big with me. I'm a contribute. That's, I believe success happens when I contribute to a greater cause.
Oh,
So I
absolutely.
don't want to create the cause, but I want to I'm a helper.
Yeah.
That's what I do. So elevating and lifting people up is my jam.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Again, another story from, gosh, it's got to be 30 years ago, right? I've been in business 25. It's got to be 30 years ago. And the president that I was reporting to, I was the regional sales manager, and we had just merged. And we go into a meeting, and he says to me, right? They're all guys. I'm the only female direct report. I need you to take notes. So you want to play poker with me. If you're watching, you're watching me on YouTube, you know you want to play poker with me because I'm very visual in how I respond. If it's in my head, you know what my face is saying. But anyway, my
Are
body
we
language.
twins?
Say that again.
I said, are we twins?
Oh my God, forget that. Right. So, but so I know my body language was like, well, you're an ass, right? So he looked at me and he said, can you do this favor for me? And I'll explain later, you know, because we're going into the meeting. I was like, sure. So, but I was so annoyed, Jackie, because I thought, are you freaking kidding me? Because I'm a girl, I could take notes. And, I grew up in the 80s in business. So I was discriminated against all the time. And then it's like time for me to move on, right? You pick up your big girl pants. But him, I thought he was different. So I was so appalled. Anyway, we go to the meeting. Of course, I take the notes. And at the end, he says, can you come into my office? I'm like, sure. And I thought, oh, I'm going to tell him thing or two, right? And he goes, before you say anything, he goes, I saw your facial expression and your body language, and I know you're disappointed that I asked you to take notes. He says, I asked you to take notes because I trust you. Number one, that you're going to be discreet in some of the things we're merging. Some of the things that should be included shouldn't. He says, because you're intelligent, you'll decipher. And he says, and also, I know you take things seriously and you will do a really good job of taking copious notes. And that's why I chose you. And he goes, and I know you think it was because you're a woman. I go, yes, that is exactly what was going through my head. Giggle, right? I fell in love with him at that moment. My best boss, but probably the only good boss I ever had before I started my own business. This boss, she's mean to me. But anyway, he was amazing. And I used to tell my husband, I will go to the ends of the earth for this man because he respected me. He elevated me and saw the capability of what I brought to the table. And again, we were going into the meeting. He couldn't have this big conversation, but he took the time to have that conversation. So I knew I was well respected. Best boss I ever had. So again, articulate, let people know why you're challenging them, right, to do something that's beyond their scope, but why. And that was the elevation at that moment. I've never worked harder for another human than him.
That's all. And people don't get that. People don't realize, think everybody works just for money, and they don't. That's just a great byproduct of what we do. But another thing I wanted to layer on the elevate, it's not just about what we do for others, but what we can do for ourselves. How are you going to elevate yourselves? What kind of mindfulness do you have? What kind of self-improvement are you doing? Because if you always are doing the same thing every day and you don't try to elevate yourself, don't expect your life to change in miraculous ways. It's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
So elevating also has to come within yourself. That's why I put, what kind of care are you giving, whether it's to your life or your business? Yeah. What are you doing for yourself? Because if you take the time to elevate who you are, whether it's learning new things, you're bringing that knowledge to others. You're passing it forward. So you're bringing that additional value to others as you're doing it for yourself as well.
So, Jackie, that's interesting about that. I love Stephen Covey and the 7 habits, right, of highly successful people. And the 5th one is, right, seek to understand before being understood, which I believe fully. People want to be seen and heard. You said that before. But the second one is sharpen your saw. And we forget that we have to stay relevant. We have to stay armed. And it's funny because now my peers, right, we're in our 60s. And when I teach and they say, oh, I'm too old and the technology is behind me, I stop them and I say, stop saying that. Are you ready to retire? No, I have another few years. Well, then remain relevant. And how do you remain? We have to be I'm not saying you're going to be an expert in technology, but you have to understand it. You have to use your Google Calendar or Outlook or whatever it is. But don't say I'm too old for that, because then why don't you just leave now, right? It's dangerous. Go ahead. You have a question.
No, I've got 2 people that walked in.
Oh, you're so funny. So if you're on Apple, you didn't just see what she did. She put her hand to her mouth. And so if you're on YouTube, you saw that. She's telling whoever walked in, be quiet, because we're talking. We're having a very good conversation. Yeah. What are some of the challenges people face while trying to live that C.A.R.E. model, the C.A.R.E. model? What do you see on the coaching side?
some of the challenges, sometimes people get so wrapped up in their own life
Mm,
that they forget about the other person that they're dealing with.
mm,
So, and the hardest part, like if you have someone that's new into any business or they're struggling financially, all they're thinking about is that next paycheck. So they're not thinking about how can I impact that person? How can, even though it would help elevate them immensely, it's hard to stay focused on that when you're struggling. So, and it's real, and that's probably one of the most difficult challenges that's out there is when you're already challenged yourself,
yeah.
how to not think about yourself when you're trying to do something for someone else.
Yeah, I got another great story for this one. I was training and one of the women stayed after, during lunch, and she shared very personally with me. She had just lost her son and she was in such bad way, and now she's in training and we're talking about how to serve the client. And she said, Connie, I'm just about getting up in the morning. So I had shared an exercise I learned from Dr. Wayne Dyer. Before I go to bed every night, I just go through my head the little things I was grateful for, the cup of coffee, my husband's sleeping next to me, whatever it was, simple, stupid things. But what I was grateful for, and when I wake up in the morning, before I get out of bed, I just take a minute or two and I start with what I'm grateful for. And I was sharing during the class that if we could show up with gratitude and love in our heart, we just do a better job for our customer because we're coming from this very authentic and giving place, and we'll always do right by the client, right? And this happened to be a bank. So financially, we're going to give good financial advice. So fast forward, she went home. Then, the next day she comes in, stays at lunch, and it was a 2-day class. And she goes, I've been trying to use that. And I have to tell you, I'm in this bad way, and shared. And she goes, and last night for the first time, I slept pretty well. I wonder if it was before. And I said, I don't know, but I'm glad it resonated with you and gave you some type of calm. I said, please keep me posted. And I really hope that it works for you. Again, I'm crying now because she lost her kid and I'm hugging her and the whole thing.
Mm.
Fast forward, I saw her a couple of months later, immediately came up to me. She says, can I tell you changed my life? I said, I did. And she said, I do that exercise every night. She goes, it's a little bit easier getting out of bed in the morning. Okay. I'm almost crying now, Jax. It was like, oh my God, a simple exercise that worked for me. I shared it just genuinely, and it was life-changing for her in this really, really horrific situation. So we never know how we're impacting someone, but I think if we're coming just from genuineness and love, we're never going to get it wrong. You know what I mean?
That is 100% true. And because I love Wayne, Dr. Dyer.
Yeah.
And I do that too. I share that with a lot of people because the last thing that we think about as night is what our subconscious is going to chew on all night.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking of, oh, all this crap that's going on in your day and someone did this to me and someone did that to me, well, you can't sleep. You're going to be unrested. But then
Absolutely.
if you think of, you can't be irritated and live a life of gratitude at the same time.
You're right.
So if you, and I have a lot of my clients do that before you go to bed at night, at a minimum, 3 things you're grateful for.
Minimum.
And it doesn't have to be people. It can be, I am so grateful this pillow feels so comfortable right now.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the air I breathe. I'm grateful for the leaves on the trees because it's so pretty. It helps me get into Zen. Anything. You can't be all up in arms when you're grateful. You just can't.
You're
So
exactly right. And it's funny, a lot of people, when they talk about gratitude, a gratitude journal, write it down before you go to bed. I have to be honest, that just never worked for me. I'd get in bed and go, oh, I forgot to, I'd get mad at myself then. So it was counterintuitive. Instead of going to bed in gratitude and relaxing, I was angry because I didn't write it. And I thought, I don't need to write it. I am going to go through it in my brain. And to this day, I have a gratitude journal. I don't write in it every day. I'm going to tell everybody, but every night and every morning, I end my day and start my day in 100% gratitude. The other thing, you said a minimum of 3. I probably have 20 things every day. And the other funny thing is, and it changes, it changes because you never know what's happening in that day. But that's also when you're present, you can be present in gratitude for those current things that are coming and opportunities that are coming in your life.
Well, and
Anything
it
else you
also
want to say?
changes the whole direction of your life.
Oh
If
God, yeah.
you are constantly focused on negative things, you basically are going asking for a dark cloud to follow you everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's
But if
true.
you focus on, and I'm not saying being Miss Polly Sunshine all the time, because Lord knows I have a long way to go if that's the case. But if you are focused on things that you're grateful for during the day, like, instead of, oh, it's raining, you know what? Oh my gosh, the plants so needed that weather.
Yes,
It's just a whole different way to look at things. And
absolutely.
more positive things are going to your energy goes where your energy flows. So you want to make it go down the river and flow positively. So you're not trying to go upstream all the time.
Well, absolutely. And listen, we all go upstream sometimes too, but
Yeah.
by putting these little habits in place and using that care model could be really, really critical to your success, both personally and professionally. You're one person. So you're showing up, whether you realize it or not. Your personal is showing up on your professional. And of course, your professional is always showing up on your personal side because you're learning and growing as well. And that's going to help your kids and your husband or wife or whatever it is. We're out of time, my friend. But listen, guys, if you would like to connect with Jackie, her email is jjoy@sellingfromtheheart.net. Jackie Joy, you can join her on LinkedIn. She posts some pretty cool things there. Website, sellingfromtheheart.net. And I'm going to put the podcast link from Changing the Sales Game, my other podcast that Jackie was on. I'll put that link. We talked a little bit more about myths around selling. So it was more sales driven, but again, very interesting. And the last thing, if folks email you, Jackie, you're offering a free book. All they have to do is pay shipping and handling. Tell them what the book is so that we can entice them to want to grow their skills and elevate themselves.
Yes, it's actually called Selling from the Heart. So it's and Selling from the Heart's a book. It's a podcast. We have a new book actually that will be released on the 13th called Selling in a Post-Trust World as well. So we have a lot of great things coming up at Selling from the Heart. Just go to that website and be
Just
part of
pay
our
shipping and
community.
handling, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the book is free, shipping and handling.
Yep.
So guys,
Yep. The shipping handling.
Jackie, you were on my other podcast, so you know my ends. Information is a beautiful thing. If we do nothing with it, it's just information in your brain, and that's not okay. We want to start applying it. So what is the call to action for today? My sales, little vernacular there. The call to action is go to the website and buy the book, pay the couple of bucks for the shipping and handling. That could be a new trajectory, and that could be something that changes your life. And elevates, accelerates all the things we're talking about today. Again, Jackie, as always, thank you. It's a joy to hang out with you, my friends. We always have some pretty good conversations and we giggle a lot too, which is always fun. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are on change in your life. Again, whether you've chosen it or it's been thrust upon you, loss of job, illness, whatever it might be. I truly hope my guests and I provide a tip, strategy, idea for you to take action. Action is where the magic happens. Jackie, that's what we talked about all day today. So please be sure to go to the website, check it out, listen to the other podcasts. You have a couple of call to actions for yourself to try to help change whatever it is that you're working on. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. You know I'm honored that you're on this journey of change with me and that you trust me every week to come and listen to my guests and I. I love you all. You know I want you to have magic and success in your life, and we'll see you next time. Have a great week, everyone. Be inspired. Take action. That's all you need to do. Love you.